Vedanta in your life as you are living. Because you are all presently devoted or committed to your careers, your studies, further studies, careers and what all follows. And that Vedanta can offer something in that also is very nice to know that that's what you think. What worries me? Nothing worries me looking at you. But in my opinion, everybody should have an understanding of what Vedanta teaches, really. It is like a manual for living life. Because, as we'll see, come. Vedanta teaches us what the true goal of life is and what the means for achieving that goal is and how to make our life a means of achieving that goal without necessarily compromising the goal that a person normally has. Meaning that without compromising the material goals, how we can also achieve the goal that Vedanta teaches in terms of, you can call it, if you want to use the word spiritual goal, that our life can be made a means of achieving that goal, while in the process we are also able to achieve our goals. And there is a way of achieving the goal that brings happiness. There could be a way of achieving the same goal which may not bring happiness. So what we want is that you achieve your goals, at the same time be happy. To put it simply, this is what Vedanta should teach us. And I think you have an idea that that's what brings you here. And that's what makes me happy. And so nothing about you worries me. Something would worry me when Vedanta is not in. By Vedanta I mean a basic understanding of the life, of scheme of things. An understanding of how what I am doing, my life that I am living, how it fits into my overall objective. If that is not there, then it is likely that what I do may not necessarily bring me the success I am seeking in terms of happiness. So that would worry me. And most people don't have it. Most people do not have the benefit of that insight that Vedanta provides. And worry me means that is what I would like to address, Does it answer your question? Okay. Next one. Can you give a definition of sewa? Is it just about the attitude or the mindset? What is sewa? I have a hard time believing that tending temple gardens and working at the homeless shelter is both considered sewa. I guess you would think that working at the homeless garden would be sewa, and you do not see how tending temple garden is sewa. Is that how I understand the question? Basically, sewa or service is more an attitude rather than a particular physical action. It is attitude that makes an action sewa or service. Because a temple garden can be tended by a gardener and that there is no attitude there. Whereas one can tend the garden with an attitude as an act of worship that this is my act and may this act please the Lord, because ultimately what I am doing is directly or indirectly connected to Ishvara. So that is the sewa of Lord directly. And when you are serving in old people's or homeless shelter, you look upon that as manifestation of Ishvara. It is possible that serving in a homeless shelter may invoke that attitude of sewa more easily than tending a garden, because it is somewhat remote from the recipient of your work. You do not see how tending a garden does anything to anybody except that ultimately garden will yield, I guess, more flowers and therefore they'll be offered to the Lord. Whereas when you are serving needy old people, etc., the benefit seems to be immediate. But still, even tending a temple garden can be sewa provided with the attitude of self-offering. Because there are nurses and people, caretakers, even in those homes, which may be professional people and therefore they may not be attitude of... So, as far as the form is concerned, that doesn't make it sewa, it is the spirit behind the given form that is sewa. It is true that certain form is more conducive to be called sewa than some other forms. At the same time, the attitude of sewa can be brought about in any form of work. If you have value, let us say, for serving Ishvara, then you can connect what you are doing here as to how ultimately serves Ishvara. A temple is being built from stones, and there are laborers who are working and breaking the stones. So that Shilpi or the architect happens to come there to inspect what's going on. He asks one of these laborers, "So what are you doing?" "Filling my stomach." "What am I doing?" "I'm doing this to, appease my hunger." Proceeds a little further. "What are you doing?" "Breaking stones." Goes a little further. "What are you doing?" "Building temple." So the same thing is being done, but if you connect what you are doing with the ultimate thing, then you can see how you are contributing to a very larger scheme of things. The particular action may look very limited, and concerned with a small thing. But if we connect it to a larger scheme of things, then we will see ourselves as contributing to a larger scheme of things. That these flowers will be offered to the Lord, so many devotees will come, and they will certainly adore the Lord. So these flowers may create in them a sense of adoration, which otherwise may not have happened. In this manner, one can connect what one is doing with a larger cause. And that is what will inspire a person to do seva. Just doing something and looking only at an immediate outcome may not inspire you. But connecting with a larger cause will certainly inspire you. And anything can be connected, because ultimately everything is Ishvara. So it's a connection that we have to work out in our own minds. In which case you feel that, what are you doing? serving the Lord, serving the devotees, or whatever it is that appeals to you. In short, we should ourselves discover a connection with what we are doing to what appeals to us. That work we may have to do. And then this becomes meaningful to us. Otherwise, as digging something, looks meaningless. What's this? What is this? This can be called sewa. But the attitude will come when I see how it contributes to what I have value. Now, everybody may have different value. Somebody may have value for serving the poor, serving the suffering, serving devotees, serving Ishvara, serving. So, find that connection. Then the attitude will come. It's attitude that makes an action seva. It's true. Not a particular action. What are simple ways to bring Vedanta back into one's life if you have been disconnected for a long time? So children come here when the parents bring them, and then they go to college, and then and then maybe go to medical school, or a long course of study, or you may start working, and that way, that's the whole idea of this retreat. Is to connect them back. Because one thing is that whenever these people came here, they all were happy and they all had a value for this. And then there is a disconnect because they got preoccupied or engaged with something which was demanding their attention and time, because of which there was no leisure, for example, to come. It is possible also that after a while the effect of Vedanta wears out, and therefore even that incentive also may not come. It's possible. Many children came because their parents brought them here. In course of time, that coming here, they did discover something. Not only just the fun of meeting with the friends, etc., but something more also they discover. By the osmosis of this place, by the people, by the swamis, and by the temple, and all of this did create a certain effect. But it is true that the effects has to be sustained by a sustained association. It is not such a deep effect that I just get transformed into something, and so that effect is subject to wearing out, and therefore this association is very important. And we hope that this will bring back what those days you had discovered, which may or may not be clearly describable, but that's the idea. Now you are different people anyway. When you're coming there, you were younger, the children, and so what you got and the way it was communicated is different. And now at a different stage of life, and now the method of communication will be different. But then what we hope is that the same kind of feeling, that this is a place I like to come back. This place has something to offer. It has some value in my life. And that it deserves that I should give it some priority in my life, so that I can take time out from my work or my study. If this is what hopefully this should do, so that we can see you, that you benefit and that therefore we can see you more often and connect with you. Because unless the next generation gets connected, how is this thing going to continue? You have temples, for example. Temples are all built by that first generation, and then If the second generation, third generation is not interested in what the temple activities are, then how is the temple going to run? This is not just a temple, the teaching place, but still the teaching is not found to be relevant or useful, then this place also cannot run. It's not only for running this place, but this place is something very important to offer to humankind, and therefore it should continue. And you are the people who already have had the exposure, and therefore you can recognize that value much more easily than somebody who is stranger. So, rekindling that value so that you get reconnected here. And so, if you've been disconnected, I think making time for coming here, at least once or twice a year, in the short retreats, like the weekend retreats. You may not be very well prepared for the week-long retreats, which you may find a little tedious in terms of subject matter, etc. But the weekend retreats that we have are made that way, where we discuss general topics which are of interest to everybody. And so it's Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, etc. So half a dozen weekend retreats are offered. So it is one or two of those, if you can make, plan out in the beginning of the year. So that's the way to get reconnected. You'll get reconnected when you find this again interesting. As children, the interest was of a different kind. As now young adults, your interest is of a different kind. And as in now, for what you are, if you discover the interest, you'll get reconnected. So immediate thing to do is to find time to come here a couple of times here at least. How does the food that we eat shape our thoughts? In English they say, you are what you eat. Which is a very profound meaning that what you eat definitely influences your mind. Although what we eat, that should not be confined merely to what we consume through our mouth, which of course is very important, but be consumed through many other doors, like all organs of perception, what we hear, what we see, what we touch, what we smell, what we read. All of these also can be considered as food. So what is consumed is called akhriyate iti ahara, what is consumed. However, our scriptures do discuss the food that we consume, which is commonly called food. That is also discussed. Bhagavad Gita pays attention to that, Ayurveda pays attention to that, and so our mind is made up of these three dispositions called sattva, rajas and tamas. Sometimes we find our mind tranquil, happy, cheerful. Sometimes we find our mind agitated, very active. Sometimes we find the mind dull also. So either during the day or in course of time, we do experience the different moods of our mind. That mood, when you find yourself or tranquil, happy, cheerful, not because of some reason outside, cheerful by yourself, that's called sattva. When you find yourself anxious, worried, agitated, restless, or just active, that is called rajas. Sometimes we find ourselves no motivation, no mood to do anything, tamas. Sattva, rajas and tamas. Now what we want is a fair proportion of sattva in our mind. At this age you need rajas also. Rajas means activity. So rajas or activity would be the main thing in your mind. But if that activity is followed by sattva, then that activity will become meaningful and rewarding. But if that activity or rajas is followed by tamas, then same activity can become also binding or a source of pain. So activity is rajas activity. But then what supports that activity? If sattva is there, then in all likelihood you will have value for following these values. That you won't easily compromise your values and stick to your principles. In which case that action or activity that you perform would be rewarding to you. First internally, and I'm sure even externally also. But if the activity is guided by greed, guided by competition, jealousy, etc., it's likely that that activity may bring harm to others and bring harm to you also eventually. Therefore we want a fair amount of sattva in our mind. The rajas or activity is predominant, but then it should be followed by sattva. That's called kshatriya. The one in whom the sattva is predominant is called a brahmana. And all these think tanks and consultants, etc., are all brahmanas. Should be. Because they require an intelligence which is focused, which is clear. You require clarity. Kshatriya is the one who is an active person. But his activity usually is guided by the spirit of doing good. Meaning that there is not much self-centeredness in that person. He is a contributor, a kshatriya. And then there is a vaishya, rajas is predominant, he is a consumer. He does also things, but then the self-centeredness is a predominant thing, and therefore he is more a consumer. And a Shudra, of course, has tamas predominant, so he always depends upon somebody to guide him, somebody to command him. But he also can perform an activity as sewa. So anybody can perform any activity in the spirit of sewa if we connect what we do in terms of contribution to the society, directly or indirectly. So kshatriya is a person who likes, who gains a satisfaction out of doing seva. A vaishya is a person who gains satisfaction out of a personal reward. A Shudra is a person who doesn't have much satisfaction either way. He does things. So food in that way contributes. We should avoid this tamasic food, we should avoid, because that makes the mind dull. Some rajasic food and some sattvic food. Both should be there. So those foods are categorized as sattvic, rajas, tamas. So what is rajasic food? Too hot, too sour, too pungent, too spicy. That stimulates. So stimulating food is what causes rajas. So some stimulation is fine, but not overstimulation. I guess one Coke may be all right, but not 5, 6, 10 Cokes or something like that, A couple of cups of coffee may be all right, but not 6, 7 cups of coffee. Not overstimulation, that's over rajas. You do need some rajas. And sattva gives a focus of the mind. It also, sattva gives you right thoughts and inspiration and insight into things. So, therefore avoid tamasic food, which makes the mind dull. Too many leftovers and things that are of no sustaining value. Sattva means life, basically. So food which is most lively, life, which would be really raw food, I think. That would be most sattvic food because the life is most preserved in there. And more you cook, then life is gone, and you cook, beat it to death, and then fry it up to the, then nothing is left in there, so that is no sattva. So prefer sattvic food, meaning which has life in there. But I myself find difficult to eat all this raw stuff anyway, although I talk about it. Right? I cannot deal with any raw stuff myself. The same time, too spicy and things like meat, alcohol, all of their tamasic food, by that definition. So, it's better to avoid those things. And all crunchy stuff, which has no sap in there, it's only crunchy but no content in there. That is also tamasic food. They sometimes make these vegetables and fry them to such an extent that it becomes crunchy, but there's no life left in there. So food does have an effect upon our mind. And maybe you yourself will be able to see it as to what you eat, and if you're observant, it may be able to guide you somewhat. Otherwise, Gita will tell you also. How do you see individuals contributing to societal dharma? What is societal dharma? What does it mean?
I think you've answered this question. It's more, how does the individual contribution, how does a commitment to your own dharma affect society?
Say it again, how?
How does a commitment to your own dharma affect society and the people around you?
Affects, okay, that's what you mean, all right. So that we'll see how commitment to dharma in your own life affects people around you and people in the society. As we'll see, commitment to dharma first affects you and makes you a person who enjoys a self-worth, a self-esteem, a self-confidence, a general happiness. Because a life of dharma makes our mind conflict-free. When you live life of dharma, you are conforming to the obtaining harmony of the order, and therefore there are no conflicts in your mind. When there are no conflicts in the mind, then there is an inner satisfaction or contentment with your own self. You see yourself as a worthy person. A self-respect is there. Self-worth is there. And this person will influence people around them. And since your actions are dharmic actions, it will contribute to society also. So it is, it's very important to follow dharma. A little difficult. And particularly following dharma, as we'll see, in an atmosphere where there is not much value for dharma, we find dharma being violated left and right, it becomes difficult. But still, more difficult it is, more satisfaction you get when you do it. More happy or proud, I shouldn't say proud in a wrong sense, but more worthy you feel about yourself. And so dharma will first contribute to you, and through you will contribute to all those who either directly or indirectly associate with it. How did Swamiji get interested in the spiritual life and in Vedanta? I always reply with one word, grace. Because I do not see in my life any deliberate choices that I made. That I had this choice and that choice and I went through some conflict, etc. It just flowed, in a very natural way. But it all began with the grace. So first I was exposed to Bada Swami Chinmayananji. And that's what attracted me to him and therefore to Vedanta. And so the next stage was like the study groups and things, discussion groups. And that created more interest in Vedanta and a desire to study Vedanta. And then came an opportunity to study in Bombay. And then the other guru. And from then on, I didn't have to do anything, And so that's how, I didn't know it was spiritual and stuff like that. I didn't know. I didn't know the kind of benefit that you people have of being exposed to this at young age. Although I, like anybody else, grew up in a religious family, so there is always an exposure to Ramayana, Bhagavata, Mahabharata values and things was there, dharma, basically. But not the kind of spirituality, not the kind of an intellectual appreciation of these things. But at the same time, I guess the mind had a liking for anything that made logical sense. And that way Vedanta makes sense, but more than Vedanta making sense, it is where it came from, really. It came from something which is very powerful. That is what influences you, and then came from something which is very compassionate. So I guess that is what made me interested. I don't know that I'm interested, I just followed. So I guess I was interested, as I would not have done it. So I am not really a good example for others. Meaning that I cannot tell you what I did which you can follow, All I can say is what happened to me, more than what I did. So it's not a very, what shall I say, a thrilling story or something like that. But it's a good story. No conflicts, no choices to be made. So it cannot be better than that also. Sometimes people ask, Swami, do you ever regret the choices? I said, I didn't make any choice. There's no regret. It never happened to me that I should have done something else. Whatever I did was the very best that I could do. This is what I've always felt. So there is luck and grace. How do you suggest young or working adults stay engaged with Vedanta? First of all, the study of Vedanta should be in our life in some measure or the other. Meaning, number one, we should discover the value of Vedanta as to how Vedanta has something very valuable to contribute in our life. In that, Vedanta gives us insight about what life is about and how life should become a process of happiness, basically. What we want is to be happy and successful people. So how Vedanta contributes to happiness and success? As we understand that, then Vedanta becomes valuable to us. This is what made our Bada Swami Chinmayananji to take up this mission of teaching Vedanta to people, because he saw that all this scriptural teaching was only confined to a very limited group, and many people were not thought even fit to listen to that. He said, Bhagavad Gita, this is a manual of, art of living and stuff, this is the kind of name he would give, Manual of self-unfoldment. So this art of living all came from him, that time. But anyway, so this is what he found. Hey, this is not for retired people. People thought that all these scriptural studies for retired people with nothing else to do. He says, no, what can you do as a retired person? Because this requires you to change and transform yourself. Then only you can benefit from that. And once you cross a certain age, you can't do that. It's difficult to do. So neither Arjuna was a sannyasi nor Lord Krishna was a sannyasi, both of them very active people, and therefore it is meant for a person who has to live his life. And this is something that guides you, which it's a GPS for life. And without that, I don't know how people live really. You'll grow up in the dark, that's what happens. You search for something that you don't know what you're searching for. That success is always an elusive thing because you don't have no idea what success is. The world seems to define success in its own way and you are chasing that and discovering that's not what you want, that's not what you want. So clarity about understanding life, what I am seeking, and how the life should become the process of ultimately achieving what I am seeking. That's what Vedanta teaches. So recognizing value of Vedanta. But then therefore study of Vedanta should become a part of our life. If not every day, at least sometimes, a couple of times a week, that you should study some. Very simple publications are there there are online classes also offered if you cannot physically attend. And hopefully coming to Gurukulam a couple of times a year, etc. Being exposed to this. And exposed to this in a manner because if you go to wrong places also, then perhaps when we turn away, you may misguide also. So the right authentic source also is important. I should not brag about it, but I think this Gurukulam definitely is a place like that. There's no question about it. I'm happy to be a part of that. It all started here. And so being engaged in Vedanta requires us to take a certain initiative. It will not happen by itself. And we can take initiative provided we have a value. So first discover what Vedanta is, what does it offer. And then, if possible, some discussion group, study group, some regular study, at least once a week, and reading something for a few hours a week, being exposed to this teaching directly. All of that is a way to... After all, if you want to make time, we can always make time. People feel that to go to a certain place is very far away, but they are not difficult in going to beaches and going to all places that they want to go. And I don't blame them. What I'm saying is that it's a matter of value. So people who cannot find time for retreats can find time, wedding, then destination wedding, then they go to Bali and attend somebody's wedding, not there, Which is fine, I have no grudge against that. All I'm saying is that if there's a value, you can always make time. That's what it is. So we have to discover value of Vedanta first. That's how the engagement will come. And for that, we have to come to Gurukulam at least sometimes so that we have direct exposure. And now we have people who are role models also, and therefore associate with them, or like our Shivam and others, who have gone through this, and see what that experience is, what made him go to India and attend a 3.5-year course, etc., etc. He would be more a guide than I am actually, because I said that there's nothing romantic about what happened to me, but something romantic always inspires us more, and this is all very bland. Even though I agree that it sounds very bland, But if something happened to me and some insight came and I left home and I did this and I was searching for, etc., that would be more exciting, So there's no such thing in my case. I wouldn't even do it, actually. Things have to come to me, I hardly go anywhere, that is how it has been. I've been so lazy, in short, that they have to come to me. And so I'm not really a role model or example in that sense. But so this why I'm very happy that this thought came in the minds of these people. At least we made a modest beginning here. and hopefully it will grow. So what was one of your inspirations to study Vedanta? So my inspiration was first of all exposure to Puja Swamiji, Bada Swamiji. And then those study groups. We used to meet once a week for 1.5 hours. It involved traveling. It was Saturday mornings, and usually that followed by lunch or something like that. So, but I didn't know what a study group was, but I accidentally happened to learn that Swami Chinmayananji was giving talks in New York. On a radio station, some announcement was there. And that was going on there, and I was reading something, but then that, fell in my ears, and they announced a telephone number, I inquired, and the location. And that is how I started. First day I could not even reach there, because from my office I went to the subway, and subway, for once in my lifetime, subway stalled, some smoke, something happened, I couldn't reach there. But then I started going, driving to that place, and that was real. I knew Swamiji several years ago in Baroda when I first heard him. Somebody took me to his lectures. I had never gone to anybody's lectures. That was the only lecture I went to, and I was just impressed by him. What I understood, I must have understood something, but and so he was in my mind. Therefore, when I heard that he is giving talks, I never went to hear anybody else otherwise, then I went there. And then we continued the study. Then they give you this envelope. I'm interested in this, that, and study group. I said, what study group? But I still said yes. Reluctantly. I normally won't do this kind of thing. But I said, okay. That was in September of 73, and nothing came. In December, some letter came that there's a meeting in New York, in Manhattan, some place, some street, east side. By then, that had already gone away from my mind, but somehow something told me, let us go. So my younger brother was with me, so we drove, and you just could not find parking in that place. 45 minutes we revolved around. I said, let's go home. But I said, wait, Paresh, why don't you, take care of the car? Let me see. So when I went up there, all the shoes were out. I said, what is this going on? Why did they remove the shoes? I am asking that question, I also, anyway, took out my shoes and went in. So somebody made a wisecrack. I think people should come in time. I was late by 45 minutes. Naturally, for somebody else. People should come in time. I said, thank you. So all of this was against my nature, And still I continued. And then some bronze, some place, the meetings, the study group would be there, which I started going and continued. So from there was to learn, and then you start thinking, and something happened. This much I could see, that Vedanta has something profound to offer. That much I could see. That is important in your life. And I had the possibility of taking off from what I was doing. That was a luxury I had. Because I didn't have any commitment, or whatever commitments were there. So, therefore, I was thinking in my mind, I should study Vedanta so that I can become a better engineer, So that was a utilitarian approach towards Vedanta. And then we heard that Bombay, I didn't know that time Swami. I only knew that Swami. And usually I would not settle for anybody else. But I said, okay, let us go. Somehow that Swamiji is interesting, that I became their life member or something like that. And so every year they would give a book. So the book came to me in mail from India, Viveka Chudamani by Bada Swamiji. Om Dayananda, on the thing it was signed there, That's how my first exposure was there. But I didn't know who that Swamiji was. So And I wrote a letter and those fellows would not reply to me. That's how administration was, and unless I had a clear, acceptance, I wouldn't want you to wind up, you do things there, there. Fortunately, Bada Swami was passing by in New York, that was, that talk series of talks I attended, by the way, unscheduled talks. The scheduled talks had already taken place that year. He was coming to US and New York in several years, I never knew about it. Some place his talks were cancelled. So he calls Ram Krupalani, you organize something here. That's how this was unscheduled talk. In a community center where 50 people maybe. In Baroda, when I listened to him, he was that far, 50 people attending that talks, So this is how this study and interest grew. And I thought, to be a better person, I should study Vedanta. To be a better engineer. So when I declared my intention of going to ashram, people were all upset. They thought that I would go and never come. I said, what do you mean I won't come back? I'm going there to come back. That's what I thought. They knew better than I did, actually. And then I went a few weeks earlier to meet with everybody, and we, in that process, we also, my elder brother lived in Bombay. So my bhabi, that is his wife, she accompanied me to inspect the ashram. What kind of facilities they have, what kind of bathrooms they have, and this they have. And so while sitting in New York, I was wondering, should I stay in the ashram or should I commute? Because what kind of facilities they would have, what kind of... So we went there to inspect. But amazing thing, what I would never settle for, I settled for everything. So when we visited the ashram, our Puja Swamiji was there for 2-3 days in the course of his travel. In between the two programs, he happened to be there, therefore we happened to see him. He was surprised to see me prostrating before him for somebody coming from the United States and doing that. He was happy. That was my first exposure. And then my bhabi was asking, what kind of food they serve? Like my mother, you see. Don't worry, we'll take care. And before that, by the way, in New York, when I went to see Bada Swamiji, my mother was there in US then. I took her with me, just like that. So that Swami thought that it is necessary that mother should give him permission. Mataji, he was trying to speak in Hindi because she would understand English. आप चिंता मत करना, हम उनको अच्छी तरह रखेंगे. I will keep him, don't worry about him, we'll take good care of him. He took the initiative, to... And Swamiji also said, don't worry, we'll take care of him. Then he went to our residential quarters called hostels. And there were common toilets and common bathrooms. But fortunately, an individual room was given to every student. I said, okay, that's good. Otherwise you have to stand in line for your... There's no resistance from my mind, imagine. And the food was quite different from what I was accustomed to. The Malayali cooks were there, and there was sambar, but then no problem at all. My stomach never resisted, everything was perfect. Everything. What else can you call it? As I said, no will on my part was involved. It's just, I found it to be so. And very good neighbors we had. My next door neighbor was Swami Satsurupanandi, and then next was Swami Paramarthanandi, and this side was Ramaswami. So we had a good batch. We think that we were also the best, but everybody likes to think that way anyway. So that's how things went on. That was it. It took about 3 days, I think, for engineering to remain in my mind, then disappeared. Never came back. So when the course is complete, then Swamiji asks me, do you have some plan? He thought that maybe I may want to go over to the United States. Do you have some plan? I have no plan. I have a plan for you, he says. So that's how it went. So that's my story. Not a romantic story, but a story. So what was one of your inspirations to study Vedanta? This is how Vedanta study happened. Then it was nothing for me, it was for the teacher, that to engage you. And it was the very best session and the time of life that we had, and the best teacher I've ever seen in my life. So there is again all grace, luck. Anything else?
Anybody else have any questions?
No question? No problem, okay. So, shall we conclude with one bhajan? Okay. Can you bring that book? Let us find one interesting. No, it's on this side.
Shall I dim the lights?
He'll do that. He will do that. Today is Friday, the day of Narayana. Okay, we'll sing one of that. Devi also, but in all the Vaishnava temples on Friday, I think they give Abhisheka to Devi also, you can say. Every day is Devi's day. Either Wednesday also is Devi, and Friday also Devi, and Sunday also Devi. Devi also is okay. Let us find one Devi, all right. So have something simple that you can repeat. Because you may not be familiar with these words, that's another problem. Okay, let me sing a simpler one. Okay. Narayana Hari Narayana 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 Hari Narayana Narayana Nanda Govinda Ananda Narayana Nanda Nanda Govinda Ananda Narayana Nanda Narayana Hari Narayana Nanda Govinda Ananda Narayana Nanda Nanda Govinda Ananda Narayana Nanda Nanda Govinda Ananda Narayana Nanda Govinda Ananda Narayana Nanda Govinda Ananda Nanda Govinda Ananda Narayana Nanda Govinda Ananda Nanda Govinda Ananda Narayana Nanda Govinda Ananda Nanda Govinda Ananda Narayana Nanda Govinda Nanda Govinda Ananda Narayana Nanda Govinda Ananda Narayana Narayana Hari Narayana Narayana Nanda Govinda Ananda Narayana Nanda Nanda Govinda Ananda Narayana Nanda Govinda Ananda Narayana Nanda Govinda Ananda Narayana Nanda Govinda Ananda Narayana Nanda Narayana Nanda Govinda Ananda Narayana Ananda Narayana Nanda Govinda Ananda Narayana Nanda Nanda Govinda Ananda Narayana Nanda Govinda Ananda Narayana Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhaved Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om
7:30 something?
So what is the time tomorrow? 7 or 7:30?
We wrote 7:30, but...
Oh, you wrote 7:30? 7:30. So 7 to 8 meditation and 9 o'clock class.
Yes.
Breakfast.
That's enough time for school.
Yeah, okay. So tomorrow morning at 7:30?
Yes.
Yeah.
If everyone can stay back, though.
Huh?
They're going to stay back.
They're
so
stay
much,
back?
yeah.
Okay, good. All right, we'll see you tomorrow morning. Yep.
everyone. Just a quick. So if you guys want to come this way. People from the back, if you want to come forward. Yeah, and you can just take these seats also. So you can just